how do you know, how are you doing it? How do you book that entry? That's not even, we're not even yet ready to consolidate or anything. It's just simply, how do you book it? Well, if you give up shares, you're going to offset you're going to debit your investment for your shares. I mean, there's things like that. Okay, now let's go on down to problem 1.3. A little different. So again, let's just roll down to the end and see what's required. Right? That's the first thing I do. These problems, it looks so daunting, but you just read what's required. So first thing, we assume that PAR, and we're dealing with PAR and SIN. I don't know how they got these names anyways. Assume that PAR issued 25,000 shares of stock for all of SIN's outstanding shares, okay? What does that tell me right away when I read that? How 100%. Okay, and that's going to matter because eventually, I think maybe chapter 3 or 4, maybe 4, we have to account for that minority ownership, they call it. So let's say they bought 90%. There's a 10% adjustment we have to make because that's not even part of our subsidiary. That's called minority shareholder interest. So it's not mine, it's not my subs, but yet it's part of the subs books. It's kind of like, you know what I mean, they had an owner too, but it wasn't mine, you know, it's kind of weird. So the big thing is you want to know how much you bought. So I bought 100% of it. Okay, and it says now prepare journal entries for the record the acquisition, and then we're going to prepare a balance sheet immediately after. We can do that. And the next one is saying assume that you issued 15,000 shares instead. So it's the same thing. We're just going to change the. Now, they're going to go gain or loss, right? They're going to play games with. That's what we're getting at there. And remember that the gain was on page 37, loss or equal was on page 33. So it's going to be one of those two examples. Okay. So the first thing you do is kind of look at it. So it says that we bought. Okay, so. 25,000. So if you look up here, it says on January 2nd, PAR issues its own $10 PAR common stock. Yeah, that's the play. I wish it would be play on words. So we know that PAR is just a number they came up with for all of it. Okay, and the SIN was dissolved. In addition, PAR paid $40,000 for registering securities and $60,000 for other costs. So we know that the other cost is going to be expensed probably, and the security registration is going to be part of the. I call it APIC, additional paid capital. That's kind of short for that. The market price of PAR on January, and that's important. Now I need to know what I bought, right? So the price was $60 per share of my stock. That's what it was worth. So relevant balance sheet. So right now I can just simply do my entry and get it in there. So 25 shares times what's the market? 60. What does that come to? 1.5, right? Is that up to 1.5? Should okay. I don't have my handy calculator.
60 times what?
Well, it's 60. So it's they're giving. He's issued 25,000 shares, and the market price of the shares that are being issued are 60 per share.
1.5.
Okay. So in theory, if that mathematically worked, we're going to debit. Now this is my books. This is PAR's books. They're going to. It's okay. It's not time to go home yet.
I was like, mine's is PAL, it doesn't say PAR. What is going on? I'm looking over it, it looks
same. This is the book. Is
ready.
Okay, good. It's definitely so many problems. That's all right.
She's with us.
We're back. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is debit our investment in SIN. Sound good? That's what we do. Okay, so we're going to debit 1.5, right? That's my asset. I bought something. It's mine. Okay, and then it was, but with I used my stock, right? I issued stock to do that. Okay, so remember, PAR, common stock is common stock is common stock, but I've got to break up PAR from not. So I take my same, how many 25,000 shares times 10 is where I get my 250. The difference between that and that is we call it APIC, additional paid in capital. In fact, they finally called it that here. That's how it should be. That's your initial, and you know what? This is pretty important. You need to get used to writing these memos underneath, because when you do books and how many are bookkeepers here? One. Okay, so this is critical because the accountant that follows you, that wants to see what you've done, needs to know what you've done, and you don't assume they even know what you're doing here. And so it says right here, to report issuance of $25,000 10 PAR shares. This isn't for your benefit. This are for our education. This is for the person who's trying to understand what entry you did. It's not a trail.
Do we need to put that in our homework?
I think it'd be a good idea.
Okay, just practice-wise.
Okay. Because I've seen some people slop it through. I've seen some bookkeepers that go into QuickBooks, make all these wonderful entries, and then they don't record what it's about. And so then as an accountant, I'm sitting there going, what were they thinking? Because I may do the entry in one, And they may make it 5 or 10 entries. I've seen that. So it's helpful to kind of get an idea of what they were doing. Okay, I closed retained 30s out to, or prior distributions after retained, it tells me how to know what they're doing. Or there was a bad debt on the books I had to write off. Oh, okay, that's great. It tells me what they've done. Yeah.
Or like QuickBooks, like where I'm working at now, we've got 2 different companies, so we're in 2 different QuickBooks every day.
Oh.
And so like if company A does the payroll, but part of the employees, let's say 5 of those employees actually work for company B, of course, we have to transfer the money in between accounts so that we're not